Welcome to the 20th season of the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our panel includes Neil Rudell of the Altoona Mirror and Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com. Between them, they've covered Penn State football for 70 years. The NitWits are hosted by WTAJ Sports Director Alex Colley, and each week we welcome a former Nittany Lion as our special guest analyst. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, an independent firm, and a firm foundation for your financial future. By Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Courtesy Motor Sales of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By Health South, your rehab choice. Health South Altoona, ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, uniform, and mat rentals. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics. Doctors Reed and Solani provide orthodontics for children and adults. By W.S. Lee & Sons, your local food distributor. Go Penn State! By Allegheny Street Cigar. Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Lakeview Sheds and Vinyl in East Freedom. You can buy off our lot or we can customize your dream shed. By Shields Awards and the Sports Shop. We have a fantastic selection of awards, apparel, and memorabilia at great prices. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you can get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday.
Welcome to the NitWits. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to be breaking down the Penn State football team's 45-14 win over Indiana. To do that, we have the Altoona Mirror's Neil Rudell, FightOnState.com's Mark Brennan, and the savvy gentleman at the end there for Penn State Nittany Lion, Joe Nastasi. Guys, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I like the tie, Joey.
I appreciate it. Yep. A little something different today.
All right, well, we all watched the game, so what were your main takeaways for Penn State's W?
You know, in my opinion, you had throwback theme to the game, and it's a perfect throwback theme when you win by 31 points and people are complaining about the offensive line and the defense and everything else. But honestly, I actually do think that's a good sign. I think it's a sign that people have come to expect more from this program, and they have high expectations. And afterward, James Franklin said, yeah, there are things they have to tighten up. But overall, you know, you talk about complementary football. The offense obviously wasn't great, but you got a great effort pretty much from special teams outside of the field goal unit. The defense keeps giving up yardage, but didn't give up a lot of points. I think it was a good game for them to come back, bounce back from being lethargic a little bit against Iowa, and have some fun with these throwback unis.
Yeah, I think the fact that they're willing to take chances and do things differently on the throwback is kind of fun. Just watching the game, it struck me, I don't know whether at times are they overrated or are they underrated at the same time, because they have so many different ways that they could beat you, and I think that's impressive. That they're a team that can win in a lot of different ways and has. At the same time, they're hitting some walls, and I agree. The bar is so high for them that people have come to expect greatness, and when you have a second and third quarter like they had, it leaves you a little wanting.
There's no question that expectations have really changed with the team, but championship teams are built like this. When something's not working right, they've got other pieces to the puzzle where, in years past we haven't had that. If we got shut down on offense, we're into a situation where we might get beat by 2 touchdowns. Now they have a lot more pieces. Defense isn't playing well, offense picks them up, and vice versa. So I thought, with the special teams play, like I said, we beat them in all aspects of the game. Even though we had a little bit of a stall in the second and third quarter, got things done there defensively and special teams, and they picked them up.
I will say this, I think offensive line-wise, maybe we expected a little bit too much, especially with Nelson going down and Chaz Wright being bumped up. They still have, I think it's 4 sophomores now, 4 kids with sophomore eligibility starting.
Right.
So I think you would expect that unit to get better and better as the season goes along, and maybe they were a little bit fortunate that they didn't run into an Ohio State or a Michigan early in the year, because I do think that unit's going to get better. Not quite maybe what we thought it was, and that's why I think they're having trouble running the ball. They just can't get out there and dominate people the way maybe some of us expected. Hopefully for them they get Chaz Wright back, because I thought that guy was playing well at the end of last year, and he is a big physical dominant presence, and you're not forced to lean on a young guy like Will Fries at a key position like right tackle.
Oh, I'm sorry, Neil, but these teams, some of these teams are saying, we're not going to allow you to beat us up here. So they are loading the box. I mean, James even said it there at the half, but it's true. If they want to take away Barkley, I mean, they're going to do it to a certain extent. That's why we have. I was surprised we didn't stretch the field a little bit more in those middle, second, third quarters. But we have the ability to do that now. Again, they're loading up and throwing blitzes, and Indiana's a good club. I really think they're a good team.
Just to drill down on that line a little bit more, Mann was playing really well at tackle last year before he was injured, and now he's at guard, and obviously the Andrew Nelson injury is a big deal for them. But I just wondered, I guess I thought maybe a Menet would surface by now. He was really a very decorated recruit, and the way the line improved so much last year, I guess I'm in the camp that thought it would be a little bit better at this point.
Yeah, well, Menet's been bumped up a lot in his career. He's had some minor injuries. I think that kind of held him back last year and maybe even in spring practice and in camp this year. So my guess is their feeling is you have Mann, who's a very versatile player. Why would you want to mess with Fries? Because he's obviously the guy that they're most comfortable of those really young guys who haven't played a lot of football. Why would you want to mess with putting him at guard again? So they put him out at tackle. Again, I think this is going to be an area that as the season goes along, these guys are going to learn and get better. The bye week's going to come at a good time for them, but they're really going to have to tighten that up. And the other thing, Joe, you mentioned this. Sure, they could take more deep shots. Again, we nitpick on this show. Trace McSorley, he's got to be a little bit more accurate on those deep passes and maybe get rid of the ball a little bit quicker on some of those plays where he took sacks.
What do we think about Deshaun Hamilton and Jason Cabin's performance? Probably their best games of the season so far.
Well, Joe, you're wide receiver.
Sure. Well, the guy, yeah, of course. I mean, I would have loved to have been targeted half that many times.
That's not where we're trying to go.
But just saying, really, when you think about it, with Penn State, how we've grown as far as throwing the ball. I mean, you look at these guys. Really a nice piece to that throwback situation where we put him in there, and all the receivers that came before him. But you look at the guy that I really like is Juwan Johnson out there. I mean, he's a guy that keeps getting better week in and week out. Hamilton has the record. And they have a lot of really good receivers. But the guy that I really feel can stretch the field and make the big plays is Johnson out there.
I'm real happy for Deshaun Hamilton. I think he's been one of the great leaders that they've really ever had. And I'll never forget the Pitt game last year and the disappointment of him coming out and talking about that and owning it. And, I think that was just such a piece of leadership that you don't always see after a guy makes a tough play. The guy's been a really good player all 4 years and, deserving.
Well, and he also, after the game, gave tribute to all the great receivers. I don't think he mentioned you, though, Joe.
Where was that one at?
I mean, he did, and he actually joked, though. He joked that he probably had a few more targets than the rest of them.
Yeah.
And Alex, you mentioned Cabinda. Talk about another guy who's been a great leader. I don't think he had a great year up to this point. He had a good year, but he came up big in that game. He made some really nice plays. This is what I think you expect out of a Penn State middle linebacker, a tough guy. And Neil, again, you talk about leaders. Yeah. Cabinda's been just an awesome leader for this team.
All right, well, we've discussed what we like, but when we return, we're going to turn our attention to what we didn't like. That and more coming up on the NitWits.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, an independent firm, and a firm foundation for your financial future. By Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Courtesy Motor Sales of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By The Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By Health South, your rehab choice. Health South Altoona, ask for us by name.
We now return to the NitWits. A roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
Welcome back to the NitWits. There was a lot to like from Penn State's win over Indiana, but far from perfect. Field goal unit, inconsistent run game were all mentioned afterwards. What stood out to you?
Well, I think they got to get the field goal situation resolved here pretty soon. They're eventually going to be in a tough game. I mean, I don't think that's a out on a limb prediction. And when drives stall, you got to be. And this kid has been so reliable. So, I don't know the whole operation snap hold. They seem pretty comfortable with the holder. but Tyler Davis has got to get back in the groove.
Well, you had another block too. I mean,
Yeah.
that to me is as troubling as anything. And the good thing is after the game, Franklin acknowledged that. I mean, he said he called it unacceptable. I mean, for a coach to say something's unacceptable after a game, that's telling you how seriously they are taking this. Joe, you may be able to address this though. What do you do? You're this far into the season.
Well, to me, you got to be careful with the kickers. You can't really sit there and beat those guys up because it's all mental for them. It's just like thinking about your golf swing or whatever. I mean, it just has to be reactive. The block part is what's I would say is more concerning because again, what we're talking about is there's going to be a time when we need one at the end of the half or need one to win the game, and it's got to be there and it's got to feel automatic. So you stay away from the kicker, you allow him to do his routine, and then you just put the pressure basically on the hold in the up front. I mean, you really do have to leave that kicker alone. You can't sit there and say make it, and beat him up at practice. It's just not going to work. Stay away from him, clean up the blocking situation where you're not getting the pressures, and you go from there.
Well, you do have another scholarship kicker. I know you want to stay away from him, but you have another guy out there. Do you open a competition in practice a little more?
Yeah, I think you have to be careful with that a little bit. I mean, I would say yes and no, depending. I don't know how these kids react. But you do have to watch that because if someone's looking over their shoulder, and the big kick's on, that you just got to watch with the pressure on those guys.
No, and I think Davis has bought himself. Again, let's be clear. This hasn't been all him. I mean, maybe a couple of these misses have been his fault, but some have been the snap to hold. Some, obviously, as Joe said, have been the blocking. So I just,
He doesn't look as comfortable, though. I mean, I'm watching some of those, and you can see it a little bit. You can usually see when those kickers are.
Didn't they make some changes on the front line of that yesterday?
I didn't see exactly who was up there, but does that really matter? I mean, when you're missing a 20-yard field goal, or a 21-yard field goal, and then the one that was blocked, it wasn't even remotely close. I mean, you have guys out there who just have to get the job done.
We talked a little bit about McSorley. It's kind of interesting to me. He's still complete. This is how high the bar is raised on him. He's still completing 65% of his passes. Last year, he completed 58, and yet there's the perception that he's not quite as on as he was last year.
Right.
Well, I know I mentioned it before about completing some things downfield, but I think even more important is to get rid of that ball a little bit more quickly in some of these instances where he's taking sacks. He also had the one intentional grounding. Again, we are absolutely nitpicking because this guy has been a terrific player. You mentioned last week. He puts them in position to win every single game. But, if we're looking at the things to be critical of, I think, and to his credit, he'd be the first guy to admit that he's got to be a little bit more on and a little bit better in his decision making.
Okay, now this concerns Barkley.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
I know. I don't want to come off as a full-blown jerk, but I thought it was a great play, but I did wonder, I couldn't help but wondering why you would want to show that play at the end of that game when maybe Ohio State or Michigan, it could really come to your benefit. It was just a thought.
I bet you Joe has an answer for that.
Well, sometimes you put those on film for preparation parts. You put them on there so you have something to think about so that there's something else off of that. Or to allow that play to develop a little bit differently so that they don't play it as tough up front. Maybe that's something we want to go to on a 3rd and 1, but we're not going to throw it.
Yeah,
So, they throw things out there that may be the exact scheme that they're going to run, but they want to keep it, so they're going to maybe keep it just so it's on film for someone else to look at.
Yeah, I think there's a method to their madness there. I
Yeah,
think they
they
want
seem
to
like they
get
know what
people.
they're doing.
I think they want to get people. The other funny thing after the game is Barkley had a lot of fun talking about he is such a natural player at every single thing he does except passing.
Yeah.
But you know what? He got it done. He was able to loop it over there and get the touchdown. It was fun to see. I'm surprised you weren't getting on him for piling on there.
No, I thought it was a cool play, and I do love the fact that they're showcasing him in so many different ways. Obviously, this is one of the greatest players we've ever been privileged to watch there.
Sure.
The thought just came to my mind to make it 45. I didn't object to the touchdown, but I thought, hey, maybe you're going to need that in a key situation a little bit later. Or maybe they have something else off.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, when the NitWits returns, we're going to continue our nitpicking as we're not done talking about Saquon Barkley just yet. We'll be right back.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your dry cleaning, uniform, and mat rentals. By Reed and Solaney Orthodontics. Doctors Reed and Solaney provide orthodontics for children and adults. By W.S. Lee & Sons, your local food distributor. Go Penn State. By Allegheny Street Cigar. Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886.
I'm former Lion Bruce Clark, and you're watching the Nittany.
Back, there was a wide variety of topics discussed after the game in Coach James Franklin's press conference. One question posed was, are the Nittany Lions making calls to boost Saquon Barkley's Heisman chances? Now, is this just a case of A, trying to get the ball to the most electrifying guy on the team, or B, are they trying to pad his resume for the big award?
I think they're definitely trying to do what they can to get their best player in space and win games, and everything else can take care of itself. But I think in doing that, I think it does create more all-purpose yards and numbers that you can bill. And they've been promoting him more than people have been promoting in the past. I think it's fine. Obviously, he returned the opening kickoff. We've debated that back and forth. Hey, you get that guy with a full-headed steam. Yeah, we lost it. Yeah, this week we lost it for sure.
Well, listen, you're talking about a guy who in the first quarter had more, had as many highlights as most people had, all season in one quarter of this game. So I don't know that they necessarily have to do anything, crazy to if you talk about the pass toward the end, maybe that plays into a little bit, but I agree with what Joe said. I think what you're doing there is trying to keep the Michigans and the Ohio States and, even Northwestern this week, keeping those teams honest. You have to do whatever you can do when they're struggling to run the ball. I don't want to say he was struggling. You got to do whatever you can to keep people honest. But no, I'm completely fine with how they're handling this, and things are going to take care of themselves from award standpoints.
Yeah, he's an absolute video game highlight reel kind of player. The stuff that he does. And I like what James is doing. I like what Penn State's doing. I don't think they're overdoing it, but they're giving a kid an opportunity to win a Heisman. And there's a lot that goes into that. You see these teams and they get these balloon stats with quarterbacks that are just throwing the rock all over the place and maybe not winning. We're doing it, winning, and giving a kid an opportunity, and our university. We haven't had one for a long, long time, and we probably had three in there, legit three guys that could have won it, and maybe things weren't handled the right way. I don't know. I can't make that call, but when you look at what James is doing and what the staff and what Penn State's doing, it's good for everybody, all parties involved, really. It's good for Penn State, good for recruiting, good for Barkley. Good for our program going forward.
Yeah, it's been 45 years, and the exposure that this is generating is just off the charts. It's on NFL channels, and a lot of that is his ability, not just that he's a candidate, just that he's such an amazing player. You can't turn on any kind of football show without seeing some clips or interviews with him.
Or even you watch other games and people are comparing other running backs to him. And that's
right.
This is the standard that's been set. I think the difference this year is you look back at '94, where I thought Kajana probably should have won it, but you also had Kerry Collins, and that maybe split the vote, and that may have been a time where Penn State just entered the Big Ten, and Big Ten voters may not have been as willing to vote that way. Larry Johnson, I thought, had a great shot, but that team lost a lot of key games.
Right.
Yeah.
This team, if they keep winning, and that's going to be the key, they could lose maybe one or two games, but if they have to keep winning overall, and he has to keep producing, and if he does, he's going to be fine.
The Heisman vote to me comes down to, he is the best. You can see it right now at this point in the season. He's the best player in college football. You can see that. It's just, are stats going to allow someone else to sneak in there, or are we going to go ahead and say the Heisman is the best college football player this year? I think it's pretty simple when you look at it from that standpoint. I just worry a little bit about the touches. That's just the coach in me, watching how many times he touches it. Well, sometimes. I mean, I thought in Iowa, but what are you going to do about it?
Well,
I mean,
he
that's the
checked
thing.
himself out of Iowa a couple
Sure.
times. He kind of got nicked up late in the game, and you could see him. And he even did that yesterday a little bit. He gets these guys a blow. He gets Robinson and
he's only
in.
I mean, he only checks out for like a play. I mean, he comes back. I worry about the touches for, a little bit too much abuse. But I mean, guys? Every time he touches these, chance to take it all the way.
All right. Well, we have one more timeout. When we return, it's time to look ahead to next week's cat fight between the Nittany Lions and the Wildcats and Nitwits. We'll be right back.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Lakeview Sheds and Vinyl in East Freedom. You can buy off our lot or we can customize your dream shed. By Shields Awards and the Sports Shop. We have a fantastic selection of awards, apparel, and memorabilia at great prices. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you can get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday.
All right, it's prediction time here on the Nitwits. 5-0 Penn State heads to 2-2 Northwestern. The host chair got Nitwit of the week.
So it was Jamie.
Yeah,
collective. We agreed going high. Penn State Northwestern play close out there whenever it's at Evanston. They've played there 9 times. 6 games decided by 10 points or less.
Where are you going, Alex?
But I think Penn State, I think it's a slow start, but I think the Nittany Lions pull away. I'm going to go with 45-14, a similar score here.
Whoa, that's a big one. I'll go next. Listen, Northwestern, this has always been a tough place for Penn State to play. This isn't the best Northwestern team, though. They were just in a very physical game, you have to imagine, at Wisconsin. They dropped a tough game to Duke, which isn't really that great of a team. Right? Yeah. So I think this is going to be close. I look for Penn State to eventually pull away, win 38-24.
That was my score.
Well, so there you go.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Well, listening to Joe at the break kind of got me thinking a little bit more. So I'm going to say Penn State. I like the fact that the bye week follows this. So they shouldn't be looking ahead at anything. You're going to say 11 o'clock kickoff out there. Not a lot of juice in the stadium. I'm going to say Penn State 37, Northwestern 24.
Wow, you're squeezing me.
Did I? Same
Man,
number?
that was good. Actually, I was thinking
You're
that was
1
going to
point
be my
off of me.
pick.
Well, that was
So they took both, you guys took both of my numbers now. I was thinking that first. Now, okay.
You're going to go one over me.
I see I don't want to say a slower start, but some things are going to have to happen defensively for us to get into a comfortable situation. Not sure that's going to happen. They'll hang around for a while. I'm going to go Penn State 35, Northwestern 21.
Ooh, we've got some tight scores here.
All right, we'll see who's right next week. We hope you join us as we take a look at the Penn State Nittany Lions and the Northwestern Wildcats. Everyone's still chasing after Mark Brennan. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, Raymond James, an independent firm, and a firm foundation for your financial future. By Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Courtesy Motor Sales of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By Health South, your rehab choice. Health South Altoona, ask for us by name. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your dry cleaning, uniform, and mat rentals. By Reed and Solani Orthodontics. Doctors Reed and Solani provide orthodontics for children and adults. By W.S. Lee & Sons, your local food distributor. Go Penn State! By Allegheny Street Cigar. Allegheny Street Cigar, Blair County's only cigar lounge. By McAleer's Plumbing, specializing in plumbing, heating, and air conditioning, serving our community since 1886. By Lakeview Sheds and Vinyl in East Freedom. You can buy off our lot or we can customize your dream shed. By Shields Awards and the Sports Shop. We have a fantastic selection of awards, apparel, and memorabilia at great prices. By easytouse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By fightonstate.com, as close as you can get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday and Penn State Extra every Sunday. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.